The views and opinions on this show are for entertainment purposes only. The only factual information is any story that has happened to AT2 or the parties involved. Other than that, go ahead and get you a drink, get you something to eat, just relax and enjoy the show. Let's have fun. All right, y'all, let's get ready. What's up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of Talk the Real Deal with AT2. And yes, I'm your boy AT2. How everybody doing? How everybody living? How everybody feeling today? Thank y'all for being here. By the way, I'm loving seeing all the green. Shout out to all my members and shout out to everybody in between as well too. But I love seeing all my members in here. Let me say what's up to the people before we start. And yes, I do have my guests in the backstage. What's up, V? What's up, Andrea Nelson? What's up, Jessica? What's up, New York Chicken Wayne? Thank you for being here. I love that name. What's up, Miss Bugs? Shout out to Vegas. Shout out to Stephanie. Shout out to my moderators. We also got Jacqueline from Facebook. Shout out to everybody on Facebook and Twitter. What's up, Naughty? How you doing? Super K, Clever Girl. Wow, we got a lot of people up in here. Okay, make sure y'all hitting that like button. Denitra, thank you. And thank you guys for all the love and support. Benita, Miss Nika, Niqua, shout out to Nelly. Thank you for being here. Okay. And I know a lot of y'all gonna come, as we go along and stuff like that. Yes, Cherokee, you are on time. Don't worry, baby. You are on time today. All right. Without further ado, let me stop wasting y'all time. I know what you're here for. We are going to go ahead and get into it. So welcome my guest to the show for the first time, and not the only time. It's going to be many more. Don't even worry. But for the first time, Meghann Cuniff. Thank you, Meghann, for coming to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you. And did I say your last name right, Cuniff?
You did. You nailed it, for sure.
Woo! Okay, and then Meghann with two N's.
Yes, exactly.
It's funny because you have a sense of humor. Like, people don't realize that because, like, I remember you were like, man, at least you can spell my name right. So I think it's hilarious how you totally get it and you understand it.
Good. Yeah. Right. Everybody needs to laugh a little bit.
Right, exactly. So how long have you been doing journalism for? I know the YouTube atmosphere is kind of new to you, but how long have you been a journalist for?
Oh, gosh. I guess if you count college, 2005, we were doing it at the Oregon Daily Emerald at the University of Oregon. That's when I got really into it. We were like covering the student government and covering the administration. It was when they were trying to build the basketball arena at University of Oregon, the Knight Arena that the basketball team plays in now. So we were like all into the Nike angles because Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, is like a big U of O graduate, obviously, and a big backer. But he was like all this stuff because he wants his way with coaches and stuff. So he was like withholding donation money for a long time. And we were really covering that stuff. And then that just kind of led to the Emerald has a big alumni network, and an old Emerald editor was the editor of the Spokesman Review up in Spokane. So he was, Eugene, Oregon. So he was, so he liked to recruit from Eugene, from U of O, and he would go to like the journalism school and do a talk, but then he liked to take the students at the student newspaper where he used to work out to a dinner and talk about and jobs and stuff. So I got with the Spokesman Review up in Spokane, but was able to go with a bunch of friends from the college paper. We got internships up there, and some of them turned into jobs.
That's awesome because you started out in college and then you went to Washington and then Idaho, correct?
Yeah, actually, the paper Spokesman Review is based in Spokane, but it had Idaho offices. So I was working at the Spokesman Review, but I was in the Idaho office. Like I started out interning in Boise, Idaho, covering the Idaho legislature in 2006 for their. They have a reporter who's been there forever. She's retired now, but she covered the legislature forever, and she would take an intern every year. So I did that, and then went up to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and worked in the bureau up there, like covered school districts in North Idaho, which was interesting because it's a very conservative place.
Yeah. How was that like making that transition from, because you said you were covering schools, but I know you're kind of known for reporting on LA court, Los Angeles court and stuff like that. So how was that transition?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard, because when you're in college, you're covering all the cool stuff at the college paper and you're with your friends and it's Eugene. So you're going out to the college parties all the time. And then, you move to Boise and cover the legislature. You just don't quite have the nightlife. And then Coeur d'Alene's like a real retirement town. So in covering school districts, like honestly, like I thought it was kind of lame, but the key is, especially in journalism, when you're starting out, like newspaper journalism, the key was always told, if you don't like what you're covering or your beat, the key is to do a really good job covering it. So the editors notice you and move you on to something else. Like everyone kind of has to start out like covering something like kind of lame. So I was able after like 18 months of doing that, I was able to move on to covering night. I was the night reporter in Spokane. So it was kind of generalist.
Okay.
It was a lot of cops and court stuff. That's kind of how I got my start covering cop stuff.
There we go. Okay. And then, so you're not a celebrity gossip per se. You are an actual journalist. And it's not, no knock to like celebrity or anything like that. But what made you want to make that move to Los Angeles?
I in 2013, I covered, or I started working at the Orange County Register. So I was working at the Idaho Statesman, and it was just being from the Northwest. Everybody kind of has like a dream of moving to California, right? Like,
right.
It sounded cool. I mean, working at the Orange County Register sounded a lot cooler than what I was doing then. And the paper was going through a big growth expansion. It didn't last. Like the guys who were doing it were like kind of scammy, but they were hiring a bunch of people from all over the country. So I was able to get a job there covering just a small town in South County. But, it was a way to get down here and get established and move to Orange County. So I started covering Los Angeles stuff after the Register, because I worked at the Los Angeles Daily Journal, which is like a newspaper players in the judiciary. It's like really well read by the judges in LA and all around California.
Awesome. Because you also worked for the Daily Journal, the Los Angeles Times. Like I looked at your resume, like you worked kind of like all over.
Yeah. I've done a lot of freelance stuff, because after the Daily Journal, I was, trying to just kind of piecemeal a bunch of stuff together. So the LA Times has local papers down in Orange County, the Daily Pilot and Times OC. So I was doing some freelance stuff for them, and some of the stuff got picked up by the main paper, but then like ABA Journal and, whatever I could to try to make ends meet, like try to get as many like gigs as you can to try to build things up.
Right. And so you are freelance, right?
Yeah. I've got my my web. I mean, a lot of people are doing the Substack thing. So my legalaffairsandtrials.com site is through Substack, and I've also got some base freelance gigs that I do for like Forbes Advisor, and there's this website called esigintelligence.com. It's based in Spain, and it's like kind of highbrow legal news about the vaping industry, because that's a huge, multi-billion-dollar industry. So all the legal stuff that's going on with it in like circuit court and the FDA challenges that go on with the various companies, I track that stuff. So that stuff's pretty steady and pays, but like kind of the dream is that I'll, build up my legalaffairsandtrials.com website and get enough paid subscriptions that I've got like this sustainable.
Right. And have your own,
Yeah, totally. It's been slow and but steady, I say. And kind of my base market is like lawyers and kind of the following that I developed with the Daily Journal. But I think there's mainstream appeal to it because so many people are interested in the court system, but there's not a lot of good coverage that like explains how it works. They act like it's totally off limits to people. So.
Right. And the funny thing is that I was looking at your channel and I had seen you were talking about how there's kind of like this big, I don't want to say push, but there's a lot of, the online attorneys having YouTube channels and, so many people talking about legal. It's very fascinating. And I think there's a lot of people who might have experience in it, doing YouTube channels or on social media. And a lot of us who don't know, necessarily the legal jargon, I think you guys can bridge that gap. So how has it been being an official YouTuber?
It's interesting. I mean, I know the key is consistency, and I haven't been very good at that. I've been a little spotty here and there, like a couple weeks from a video, because foremost I'm a writer. I want to write articles, and then once I've written the article, do a YouTube video about it. So I need to try to be a little more consistent, and maybe do like a live once a week or something where I just talk about what I'm working on or something, but I'm still kind of getting into it. But I mean, overall, I think it's great. It's like a whole new medium to connect with people. I mean, there's like 2 billion people on here. You'd be kind of crazy not to be trying to like reach them and, get your work out there. So.
Right. Take advantage of it. I always tell people it's important to use all social media avenues because you just never know. Like, because I know for you with the Twitter and stuff like that, you were kind of you've been kind of viral before the whole Tory Lanez because of Michael Avenatti. You covered that case, right?
Yeah. That was kind of my first experience with like attention on Twitter. Because really, when I was at the Daily Journal, God, we used to like go back and forth with the boss on this, but he hated Twitter and he wouldn't let us use it because it was such a paywalled. In a subscription to the Daily Journal is like $900. It's like law firms that read it. So he saw no purpose to it. So he would get mad at me if I'd like tweet from court or something. He's like, you're giving away content for free and you're paid to work for us, So I was totally stifled from like using it for a long time when it was at the Daily Journal. But once I got out of there, law.com and ALM, where I was at for a year, they're a lot more mainstream about it, and they were letting me use it. So that's when I got into the Avenatti stuff. But the numbers weren't, anything compared to Tory Lanez. That case just had like way like exponentially more interest in it.
Right. And so, speaking to Tory Lanez, have you ever covered like a hip hop case before, or was this like the first one? And did you know how big this case was?
I'd covered Cardi B. She went on trial in Santa Ana for excuse me,
the tattoo, right?
Yeah, the tattoo over the album. But that was like a fun case to cover. It was really funny. Like she was at the court. It was like 4-day trial. All the high school kids trying to mob her. It just didn't have like the drama and like contentiousness surrounding it that Lane does. So, and then no, I didn't realize it was such a big deal. I just got. I'm on the mailing list for the court system, and they send out stuff. If there's a trial coming up, they're like, email us if you want to be on the list to get a badge. So I saw that coming up, and I figured I'd still be at the courthouse anyway for the Harvey Weinstein stuff. So I was like, yeah, sign me up. But no, I didn't. I didn't really know at all. And I mean, I'd heard of her before, but I hadn't heard of him. But I now understand that it's just because I like hip hop and I've listened to it a little bit growing up, but I mean, I wasn't like a big hip hop fan at all. And I know if I like was involved in the industry or followed the industry more, I would have known who he was, but no, I didn't know who he was.
Right. And, I think also too, the big fascination over that case was because it was all like, who did it? Right. But then we were also in the pandemic and like nobody was supposed to be going anywhere or nothing. And, this happened in 2020. So we had a lot of time on our hands. And, you live in California, too. In California, we were shut down. And especially in Southern California, I know you guys had it bad, too. So, we weren't able to go anywhere. So we were fast fascinated looking online, YouTube, and all social media. So I think also too, when this case finally came up, it was all like, oh, I remember that. And then when details started coming out, it was just like crazy. But
Yeah.
speaking of details, did you ever think, and I don't know if you can answer this, did you ever think that Tory was going to get off, because the media coverage seemed very biased for Tory Lanez? I remember there was this one guy, and I guess I forgot what his name was, and it's not important, but he'd be like, oh my God, Tory just has another win. He won again. And like, he literally would go live and people be reposting him. But you seem like you're the only one giving an unbiased opinion and just giving like the facts out there. And you weren't team Meghann, you weren't team Tory. And I think that's how you kind of slid your way in there,
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of been like my job for so long. It's like you go to a court. It's like the editor sent you to go cover somebody's testimony, They don't give a shit about who was in the audience or like, what you think about somebody was wearing or something. It's like, it tell us what they said in inverted pyramid style, like what was most important kind of thing, like write that story. So I'm just kind of used to that kind of reporting aspect of it, like just focus on the facts kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, going in, I've covered so many criminal trials that I know that in the end, like juries like to convict, and especially a case like this, I actually hadn't covered very many like just assault cases in Superior Court, because I'd covered like some murder cases or something, or complex cases involving like an informant scandal that was affecting a death penalty case. But like most of the trials that I cover are in federal court. Like I covered an insider trading trial. I mean, all sorts of stuff, but they're a little more complicated than just like a first-degree assault shooting case. And I was just kind of like, if the victim's testifying, because I remember even in the pool report, because the way the courtrooms are, it's so packed in there that when they have jury selection, there's not enough room to just let a bunch of reporters in. So they only let one reporter in, and the reporter serves as the pool reporter. So there were a bunch of different people being the pool reporter. I was never the pool reporter, but I was getting the reports. And one of the reports, or some of the stuff online or something, was like, the judge even was like talking in code when they were talking about Meghann. And they had like a nickname or something. They were like, because they were clearly talking about the victim and whether she was going to testify, but they like didn't want to say in court that she was going to testify. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you can't have an assault trial if like the person who was assaulted isn't going to testify. It was just like,
right.
I mean, it was like misinformation or just like weird stuff going on in the coverage, but also the court was kind of doing it too. Cause it's like, why? It's not a secret that she was shot, like, why do they have to like talk in code like this kind of thing? I mean, of course she's going to testify. If she didn't testify, there probably wouldn't be a trial. So
yeah, because I can't imagine them being able to convict him without her testimony. But I mean, I won't say like it has never happened before, but I think it would be kind of hard, and especially with that whole component where they had the Kelsey, the best friend, and she didn't initially want to testify, and then they ended up playing her audio from the interview that she gave, like I think like 4 or 6 months ago, and then that they brought that into the case because originally they weren't going to play it.
Yeah, it was 2 months, it's September. So, and this was prosecuted by the family violence unit. So like the domestic violence stuff, and then also like the gang cases, they're kind of used to, it's more common for witnesses to recant on the stand. So there's an established procedure for that. Like if they get up and say something that's like different from what they said earlier or in an earlier interview, it's definitely legally possible to take their previous statement and ask them about it. It's like, well, you're saying this now, but didn't you say this back then? And you're getting in their prior inconsistent statements. So that's what they were doing, Kathy Ta, when Kelsey got up on the stand. The prosecutor, Kathy Ta, was going, and Kelsey was saying, I didn't see him shoot, was like going through the interview back in September, being like, okay, well, didn't you say this? Didn't you say that? But it's like a really painstaking process. It's not like she could just get up there and play the whole interview from the beginning. She had to like ask questions that like introduce certain statements. So it's kind of an example of how prepared you need to be, because obviously she needed to know that interview really, really well in her head, because she's like on the fly at the lectern asking the witness about it. You know, it just shows like how much work and like how much preparation needs to go into this.
Yeah, very strategic too.
Yeah. So she was able to get a lot of it in, and you did hear some of it, but it was just like it was kind of a mess because, you know, Kelsey wasn't having anything, and it was just going on for so long that they were getting kind of combative and stuff. But then Tory's lawyer got up there, and obviously in his mind he's like, okay, this is good for me because I've got Kelsey saying right now he didn't shoot her. But they've heard these statements from the September interview where she says, oh, he was the shooter. So in his mind, he's like, I need to discredit that September interview in this exam that I'm going to do. So he just started asking Kelsey about, you know, they were pressuring you, Kelsey. Weren't they? You know, they were pressuring you. And I can't remember her exact answers, but it made it so afterward, the prosecutors to the judge were like, they just opened the door to play the whole interview. Because implying that we're pressuring her when if you play the whole interview, you see that we weren't at all. So the judge didn't rule immediately, but yeah, at the end of the day, he was like, I agree, you're right. They opened the door or McDezian, Tory's lawyer opened the door for the whole interview to be played. So that's the next day, and they played the interview. And I know he brought that up in his motion for new trial, but it was just, it's so common that happens. The prior statements and then the, you know, opening the door for something in your questioning of a witness. So
And McDezian was the one that told Tory not to that the Kelsey defense that she did it was the best, right? Or was that someone else?
I'm not. It was Sean Hawley, his original lawyer, who said that she didn't think the Kelsey defense was a viable strategy, and that if he wanted to pursue that defense, he needed to he should talk to McDezian. Basically told him to find another lawyer, but that it sounded like McDezian was already involved in the case. And it was interesting because in the emails it says that Sean says that McDezian is coming into the case and that Tory has known him for a long time and trusts him. So I'm like, I wonder how they know each other. I'm just like kind of curious to know like how he knows McDezian, because I always kind of assumed that going in there that Sean brought McDezian in just because she knew him, but the email showed that it wasn't Sean, it was Tory who brought McDezian in and was wanting McDezian to be co-counsel with Sean Hawley. And then the email came where Sean Hawley's like, I disagree with the Kelsey defense, like have fun with Tory.
Yeah, that's where it came from. It's very confusing because it seemed like Tory has like a lot of different lawyers, and then, you know, we get introduced to Ronda Dixon, and it's kind of like, well, where did she come from? Because, you know, his current lawyers are Bias and Barhama, right?
Yeah, not Barhoma as soon as they get the other guy in, Wellborn. Although that was on Wednesday, and I gotta like check the file because who knows? I mean, maybe something happened in the last few days. The way this case is, you know, it's like so ever moving. But yeah, the Ronda Dixon stuff was interesting because I mean, in the end, I mean, but he said, and I think Barhoma was referring to the withholding of case documents because of a debt. He was saying that wasn't true and that Ronda already has everything. But I mean, she did meet with them, and she was gonna, you know, Tory was gonna have her substitute in for Barhoma, but then he met with both Barhoma and Baez and decided to go with Ed Wellborn. But one thing that's important for me to remember is that was Wednesday, and Baez was saying that Wellborn was going to file the notice of appearance within 48 hours. I don't know if it's been filed. Maybe it has, but maybe it hasn't, because I mean, if Tory wants to hire her, he totally can, because it's not like Baez's decision whether to hire her, but it's kind of the point. It's like, dude, how many lawyers do you need? Like, now that it's post-trial, there's just not many options for him other than.
And it was just very strange because, you know, they weren't sure, like, well, have they actually met? Like, you know, Tory's lawyers didn't even know that him and Ronda had met. It just seemed like this lady just came out of nowhere. But no, she actually did meet him. And she actually contacted you. And, you know, I'm going to get to it. She contacted you and, like, wanted to speak with you because she knew you had been covering the case. Like, how was your initial conversation with her first?
I'm good. I mean, she just introduced herself and said that there was a hearing the next day. This was like Tuesday night, and that she'd actually been in court all day. But and I was like, "Are you going to be joining Baez?" And she said, "Well, hopefully not." And she just said that she wasn't getting along with them at all because she thinks that they're taking advantage of him and charging too much money and all that thing. And, that's just her opinion on it. But it's also like, I mean, when you just look at what Barhoma was doing for Lanez, like filing that writ petition to try to recuse the judge, it's like, oh, come on. I mean,
right.
They're almost like lawyers in LA would kind of consider those protest petitions. Like, it doesn't really have any legal standing, but you think it should. So you're filing it just to kind of make a point. And to like, and to do that, if you want to do that, okay, but to charge a client for that, especially if you're charging a client a lot of money, it's like, oh, come on. Like, yeah. So it was just, and I think Ronda was seeing that too. And one question I have is, I have no doubt that Lanez is in some kind of protective custody, and just the way that jail is, like, it's so segregated. I'm not even really sure there is like a general population for them. That's why they all want to get the hell out of there and go to state prison. But when Ronda's talking, and she said this in court too, that she was denying soliciting Lanez as a client. Because, I mean, any celebrity is totally in a position where these lawyers could just, try to buddy up to them just for
try to reach out to them. And
even for just publicity. Because when I talked to her, it was kind of in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't have any like real proof that she actually met with Lanez. It's like any lawyer could just call up a reporter and be like, oh yeah, I'm, insert name of famous person here, I'm their new lawyer, write an article on me. Like, so but she sent me the notice of appearance that had it both. And then when I emailed Barhoma and he replied, he confirmed it in his email, because he said, oh, that's not true. And Ronda has all the case documents from Baez and I. It's like, okay, so she is taking over the case.
Yeah, she is taking over.
So something, and I have no idea if this is true, but I did a live the other day, and somebody who was like obviously a Lanez like super fan was just like going off on me in the comments. Stuff, and he commented that Lanez was meeting with Ronda again, and like I said, I was almost kind of hesitant to say that because I have no idea.
Right, you don't know.
From an entertainment standpoint, I hope it is, because it's kind of funny to see this like revolving door of lawyers just like going into Lanez's jail. So, I mean, it's just, but it's also kind of sad because lawyers are in such a position to like take advantage of people, and I mean, inmates are desperate. And we see this with other like criminal justice reform lawyers too, where they're like taking advantage of families of people who have people incarcerated, and they're just desperate for stuff. So
right, and it's a high profile case. Like this basically raises and I'm not saying Ronda is doing it for this reason, but it raises her stock, because I don't know if she had any high profile cases other than this one, right? I know you even had said that like you weren't too familiar, but she's been working since 1988, or was it 98?
Yeah, she's been licensed since 1988, and her LinkedIn profile has some stuff. I haven't heard of her, but the Superior Court is like kind of a wild west for attorneys too. There's so many of them and stuff. So, Ed Wellborn, the one that Baez wants to hire, is a lot more well-known and like, I think a lot more experienced in just like what they need him to do. Cause they need him to prepare a mitigation package where they talk about like, here's all the reasons you shouldn't sentence him to 13 years in prison, and instead it should be less. So you need somebody who really understands like the new California sentencing reform laws and all that stuff, and can cite cases and like really make an argument. So it really makes sense that he's doing that, because I mean, Ronda's kind of saying stuff that obviously Lanez and his family are going to want to hear, like, this is cruel and unusual punishment. We're and
she's trying to get him out actually
trial. But I think Baez, like, the reason he said he wasn't on board with the cruel and unusual punishment is not because he thinks it's like nice that he's in jail. It's just because he knows it's a losing argument. He just knows that if you bring a motion like that, it's going to get rejected. So somebody was asking me what my shirt says. It's a Black Butte Ranch. It's in Oregon. I used to vacation there with my family all the time, but it's near Bend, Oregon, and Sisters, Oregon. So give a shout out to Black Butte.
Cool. That's cool. Yeah, so speaking of like the troll that came in your chat, how was it, dealing with kind of like this being viral for a moment and having people, comment on everything that you said about the case? Like how were you able to deal with that?
Yeah, that was weird. I mean, it kind of when the trial was going on, it was kind of hard to notice just because I was so busy with everything. And you're in court, and then I take the train home and back. I just kind of am focusing on eating and sleeping and writing the stories. But then I had a chance to sit down after the trial and like see all the attention. I was like, wow, this is cool. But in the months after, it's just been kind of weird how like personal it is for people. And it took me a while to realize that there were people like making videos about me, like just ranting on their Instagram live, like talking about me in bed and stuff. Like it's freaking weird. And it's like, and it's just the whole insistence of like making somebody's story. Like it's that whole, what are they, small minds talk about people and like, larger minds talk about issues or something. But it's like, yeah,
Right.
it's like, can't talk about like the issues of like the criminal justice system or whatever. They just have to like freak out about this one reporter. And like it was weird to see people I've just like never met before, never talked to them before. They don't know anything about me, like calling me by my first name, like kind of going off on me. But for the most part, it's like just ignore it, But it's just funny that people think that they know who I am, like the whole Karen thing. I'm like, okay, has the Karen thing just like
courthouse
calling everyone Karen and stuff? It's like, what the fuck, And people, somebody talking about how my dad pays my rent or something. It's like, my dad died in 2003, you assholes. And another thing, the idea that I'm just like some goodie. It's like, look, guys, my brother's been to prison 3 times. Like my oldest brother, I visited an Oregon State Penitentiary when I was 16 to like go visit him. Like my dad was a criminal defense attorney. I mean, the idea that I'm just like some system loving, don't question anything kind of thing. It's like, they just have no idea what I'm talking about. But that's also just like, I just try to ignore it because the story's not about me. And I almost feel like bringing any of that up or just answering any of their questions is almost just like validating it. It's like, so.
Yeah, you have to learn how to just ignore it. Like sometimes, like for me, if you can't have fun with it, don't respond. But sometimes, with the trolls, you have to respond a little bit, but it's all, on what you can handle. Sometimes you do have to completely just drown it out. Like, because, I will say this as well, too. It seemed like at times, you were painted as like the bad guy for no reason. Like, there's the whole controversy about, if you got, 2 people kicked out the, I'll just say their name, Armand and Milagro, if you got them kicked out the courthouse and like, you were like, wait, I didn't even know about it. And I still blame Dennis Byron because he put that tweet out and he said, new developments coming soon. And we ain't got no developments.
Oh, yeah, no, exactly. And I was just like, it's like, this is a developing story. It's like, okay, if you worked at a newspaper and did that, you'd be fired. Like the bosses.
Yeah.
Like you have to get stuff a little more confirmed before you do that. But yeah, I mean, they're just obsessed with that stuff. And that's why, I mean, that's why I found your video because I was like, I should ignore this, but it's also like there's just these weirdos making videos about me. So I'm like, I appreciate this guy not being a weirdo because like there's this one lady who's just like made a video where she's got my picture up and she's just going off on my appearance and stuff like that. And somebody, a friend who has a much bigger online presence than me, like has like almost 1 million followers on Instagram, getting all sorts of attention, told me that is always what they go for. They always go for appearance. There's like a certain crowd of like nasty people online that go for appearance. But I mean, I was just like, and then when I listened to her video, which isn't a good idea, but I mean, she's just like so full of shit. And that's what bothers me. I'm like, these people are so wrong. Can we make it cool again to know what you're talking about? Because it's like, like the coolness factor is like who can lodge the best insult. Like somebody responded to my Instagram picture the other day and they're like, you look so nerdy. Oh, burn. Oh my God. They replied with like a little more expansion on their insult, like detailed a little bit better. It's like, okay, at least put some effort into it. But we've reached a point, it's like the Idiocracy movie that you see. And it's like, frankly, it's how Trump got elected. Like it's just focus on people and personalities and like, it's cool to insult somebody in a really good way. And it's not cool to like actually know what you're talking about, you know?
Right. And Vegas asked a really good question. She said, was the lady on camera when she was talking about
No.
Vegas? Look,
And I looked around and I'm like, does she have her, like, in her picture, it like might be her, but it's all like weird. You can't really see it at all. It's just like, and I got a little pissed and responded and was like, you are an absolute coward. Because like, and overall, I should just because somebody, that was like a couple weeks ago that I did it and I kind of forgot about it, but somebody found it and replied to it today and was like, obsessed. You're the one who found it. I'm like, well, obsessed with myself? Yeah, well, somebody's got to be. I'm like, I got to monitor my reputation sometimes. But when she replied, deleted the whole thing because it's like, don't encourage him, don't interact with him. But yeah, it is weird, and it's like kind of anything when people just start insulting your appearance. It's like, what the fuck? Shut the fuck up, like.
Right. And you know what the funny part is? Like, I was just thinking, like, it's always the people who don't show their face or hiding behind, you know, the avatar, and like they're just talking about your looks and the way you look, and you're just all like, wait, what do you look like? Like, turn on the camera and let me see you. I just feel like, and you know, I'm fine with people talking about my looks. I just want to be able to see you so we can go back and forth. You know, like I think it's unfair if we can't see your face, but you're gonna judge me for the way I look and all that stuff, you know?
Yeah, because because on the one hand, some people are like, "Oh, don't get into the T crowd on YouTube," and you know, I'm not gonna like make my channel that, but I'm like, I'm interested in talking about this stuff, and I think it's interesting what all the different YouTubers do, and if you can have a good conversation about it, because like if I go out with my friends now and like they start talking about the Tory Lanez case, I mean, they don't really follow it and stuff. So it's like kind of good to have an outlet with people who like actually follow it and can be like, oh yeah, Ronda Dixon, like,
right.
Her.
And you know, another thing is too, like with the YouTube, it's like if there's no problem, people will create an issue. And I think, you know, with that situation with Milagro and Armand, I think that issue was created. It was like, it was not one there. And then you have people in your ear telling you this and that. And it's all like, whoa, like, and I know for you, you're all like, anybody can reach out to me. Like, you're not one of those people like, oh, don't talk to me. You're not big, you know, you're not on my level. Like, you can literally reach out to you. And I think, you know, that was something important that you said. Like, you can always reach out to me if you have a question or anything.
Yeah, because one thing I talked to Darnell. It's your boy Darnell. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah. And when I talked to him about it, I was just talking about gosh, what was I going to say there? I got distracted by a comment. But what did you say before that?
Oh, it was regarding you know, you always say like you can reach out to you if you have a question. Yeah.
Oh, right. Like I was just saying. The whole thing with them getting kicked out of the courtroom, because everybody is just obsessed with that. Like, I mean, maybe not obsessed, but I still hear about it, and it's like, I'm like, if anybody ever actually asked me what I think about that, I think it's kind of heavy-handed that they got kicked out of there. And I mean, it is unfair because it's like, what were they even doing other than, I mean, they were like filming downstairs or something, and they do freak out about everything. Like the woman I was saying who has the million Instagram followers, she was like called before a judge during the Harvey Weinstein trial for taking pictures in the cafeteria of like a coffee mug or something. Wow. So you take it really seriously, but also she didn't get kicked out. She was just given a warning. So them getting kicked out permanently, and it was kind of weird to me that they're able to go back. They're able to go back in the courthouse, because I don't think you can just ban somebody from a public courthouse like that, you know? But when they tried to go into the courtroom, they were told, like, I think the bailiffs are telling them that it's like the judge or something, but I just think they should challenge it a little bit. And one reason kind of bothers me about, and I kind of worry for like the overall state of journalism, because we have YouTubers who are legitimate media because of their following, and they have media access, but then when they get fucked over and get their media access taken away, they don't really have the knowledge or skills to like stand up for traditional journalism and be like, I have a First Amendment right to be in that courthouse. Their knee-jerk reaction is to just go on YouTube and start making hate videos about somebody for getting them kicked out. It's like, dude, you need to stand up for not only your rights, but the rights of every other journalist, and try to get back in the courtroom. Like, I mean, maybe they have, but and the way to do it isn't to go there and like argue with the bailiff. They need to they need to get a lawyer or something.
A lawyer.
easier said than done. But also, can't they just like write a letter to the judge or just like show up in Judge Hereford's courtroom for another hearing and like try to? It just seems like there has to be a way for them to kind of negotiate. But instead of dealing with that, they're just like, well, Meghann Cuniff's a Karen. It's like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, and it got totally blown out of proportion. And, and I think that's also too, and this kind of goes with this question, like, bridging that gap between, journalists and bloggers and online personalities, like, how do we work together and like make a team, And, it's kind of like this thing because like, I want to ask you, like, for us YouTubers or bloggers, do journalists take us seriously, or you see us as like, oh, these little peons, or, what is your perception?
I mean, I think we have to take it seriously because, like, I saw the question about, is it worth going to journalism school for? And I guess it just kind of depends on your own personal situation. But yeah, especially if you can go someplace that has a good college paper and get involved with the student newspaper, that's like really a training ground and where you kind of learn, the fun of journalism, and it's so organic and like every story is like such a big deal. So yeah, I think there's definitely something for that, but also like it's just such a dying medium. So I think that we all have like a lot to learn from each other, and there's just so many different YouTubers. Like one thing I was reminded of when I covered Donald Trump's old lawyer John Eastman's disbarment hearing.
Getting disbarred, yeah,
huge crowd for that. The J6 Trump insurrection crowd. I mean, almost more than Tory Lanez, like the interest, and they pay. It's like a bunch of like old housewives in Ohio who are like, thank you for keeping me informed. They're like, liberal Democrat, like used to burn her bra back in the day or something. So they want to keep up on like the Trump files and stuff. So, and there's a big factor there of people doing like YouTube news reports on stuff. So I think there's a real way to like do traditional journalism, but also one thing I was bringing up was in another interview that somebody tagged online. They're like, it's weird how much she talks about him in here or something. But I was talking to a bunch of people, a bunch of like old mediators and lawyers, where it's pretty funny, and it's worth listening to the intro in the very beginning just to hear the old mediator, the way he pronounces Tory Lanez. He's like Tony Lanez or something. I mean, he like completely butchers the name, but it's a bunch of people who've never heard of this case before. So I was talking to them about legal affairs journalism in the social media era. So I was kind of introducing them to these YouTubers because I think there's so many who don't understand. It's like, no, there are people who make like a living off this, it's like their full-time job to like go live and stuff. And
I know it's my full-time job. So yeah, like if you see it works.
It's not, like there's always been this in America. Like if we went back to like the early days of newspapers, you would find like the shock jock gossip talking about like the new entertainment, like critiquing new entertainers or stuff. I mean, it's completely nothing new. It's just, it's found so much success in the new era, like the entertainment journalism and entertainment reporting or entertainment commentary has found a way to thrive online. But I think traditional like news reporting, like city council coverage, it's just, not as sexy, but it's also just that they haven't innovated like entertainment journalism has. Because I think entertainment reporters and people who are entertainment focused have way more of an ability to just go off on their own.
Right. And it's very like personality based too. Like, if you have a personality, people will love you. Like you could be saying the wrong stuff and people will love you as long as you dress it up and make it sexy. People will buy it, like it is what it is. But I do think, there is, even though, I'm not a traditional journalist, I do want to be careful with the things I say and then the message that I'm trying to convey. Like I never want to put false information out there. And I think, with having someone who does have that journalism background and then someone who might be on the more entertainment side, I definitely think there's a way we can work together, because you have worked with Neek at Night. I see somebody put her in the chat, Neek at Night, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that was, and I met her at the Tory Lanez stuff, and then she got the, she got all that attention for getting the exhibits. That was going to beat everybody on that. And then, I just saw her at the next court hearing and was like, you should go to the OMG girls hearing, because I do think it's like the legal affairs journalism is just so like cut off from everybody. And the way we don't like like mainstream newspapers don't cover courts enough, that I think a lot of people just don't realize that it's like you can totally just go into the courthouse and like go into the courtroom and sit down, and as long as you're not like disrupting the proceedings, you can just sit there all day, you know. So
Right.
yeah, trying to spread it a little bit. And then also I just think it's interesting the medium that they have and the huge subscribers that they have. You know, I was saying at this mediation thing I did the other day that, like, if the LA Times, with like all their layoffs and they're selling the San Diego paper, we would kill for the kind of audience that some of these lives get. So you know, it's just, where do we, how can you kind of capitalize and use the new mediums to also bring your traditional journalism and values to it, you know?
Right. I definitely like that. Yeah, I agree with you, because just imagine, you know, with some of the following that we have, if we were able to transcend that over to, you know, some paper or something like that, like it would be big, you know. So I do think that there's an advantage with us, you know, and especially with being a YouTuber, you know, we don't necessarily have to wait or get approval for somebody else. We can just go live and put the information out there, you know.
And there's something that it's so much more timeless when you have a print article. And if you're going to like scoop something, or if you really want to like put somebody's underwear up the flagpole, you know, you want to have your facts like nailed down in an article. You don't want to just be like, oh yeah, I reported the news, it's a big scoop, go to minute 13 of this 47-minute video. You know, you want to have somebody like, just, it's right there in front of your face, inverted pyramid style. And so that's what I'm trying to do with the YouTube. Like, if I have a big single story, like publish the story on the website and then go to YouTube to talk about it. And then maybe do a live like once a week where I just like take questions or talk about my stories. But I want to keep it print focused, like, because you're writing the first draft of history, you know?
Right. And to answer this question, I know you talked about on your channel kind of like branching out on other cases, but more so like when it relates to LA, like, would you ever travel? I don't know if you know of Bishop Whitehead. He was the bishop in New York that was robbed, and then now he's indicted on some charges and stuff like that. Would you ever travel for, you know, work and stuff like that, or just LA based?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to eventually travel, and kind of the idea with my legal affairs and trials Substack thing is that, you know, I'll just get this huge base of paid subscribers, like my friend Jessica House and Habit, and she's like traveling over to England to go to the King Charles's coronation, you know. But right now I don't have enough for like a big travel budget. But the idea is that if I can get, you know, independent enough through YouTube, through Substack, I don't think my YouTube's ever going to be like some huge revenue generator.
You never know.
Like, you got to at least try. You got to.
Yeah.
And I think kind of the key is my Substack, and if I can get some support through there, like through the legal community, that kind of thing, I'd love to travel. And one great thing about it is that, like, if there is a ton of interest in a trial, like I hear a lot about the Jonathan Majors case, although that's not that doesn't. I think technically he's set for trial next month, but I bet it doesn't actually go to trial next month. But the Mellon case, I just want to stick to LA right now because I'm still kind of building up the base, and I frankly just don't have the budget to like travel like that. But yeah, I mean, that'd be kind of a dream of mine, to just be able to travel around the country. But right now I'm very like LA focused, like LA and Orange County. But you know, this is where the stars are. Like ASAP Rocky, somebody reminded me the other day that he has an assault case that's pretty similar.
Oh yeah, he does.
There's not anything on the horizon. I think it's like early next year, but it's one of those cases. It's one of the charges where the sentence on that is like, to expect him to just plead guilty and be like, oh yeah, I'll go to prison for 6 years. Like, it probably, yeah, exactly. It probably will go to trial. So it definitely, if he goes to trial, I'll cover it. So, but it would have to be LA focused.
Okay, LA focus for now, and then, you know, later move on. Oh, someone asked about the MJ case. Well, Michael Jackson, will you be covering that? I know there's something with some of his accusers. They're going to take him to trial.
It looks like the civil case is coming back, and yeah, definitely. I kind of there's so many cases that I don't track it until like a trial actually happens. But the way LA Superior Court works with their pain in the ass press office that I'm always going off about on Twitter, they notify us about stuff like that, and it's like, send us an email by Wednesday if you want to be on the press pass list. So if I see anything like that, I'll definitely sign up for a press pass. But a lot of the cases are like, until there's an actual trial, I probably won't. There's not really like much to cover.
Right, until it actually goes to trial. That's right. Something that I did want to point out, because you actually won an award for this for the Southern California journalism, was the civil rights case with Marco Milla. He was convicted, for murder, but basically it was not, they found out that he wasn't. And they didn't check the surveillance video that would have showed that, he was at the liquor store at the time that it happened. And so, with that case, how did you come about that case?
So I actually just found that by looking at the judges' calendar, because the federal judges put their calendars on the internet. It's like two days of calendars at a time. And that's the best way to find cases, because legal journalism is filled with like shameless marketing people and PR people. Like, I got some big long ass email from some PR guy from some case, and it was just like, dude, give it a rest. But I kind of prefer to find my own cases, because everybody has a spin on it. But when his actual last name is Slaughter, so he's Judge Slaughter, and he had a case from 2016, and that's what caught my attention, because it takes a long time, the court system does, but it usually doesn't take that long to have a lawsuit that's been around for 7 years. It's like, what the hell is this? And you can kind of tell it was just Milla versus City of Los Angeles. You can usually tell that those are shooting cases, civil rights cases, because there's so many excessive force cases filed in federal court against the cops on behalf of the family of somebody who died. But another sign is usually the name is like Yvonne or something, because it's the guy's mother or it's the guy's sister, because the guy who was shot is dead. So the fact that the guy suing, I'm like, this is a civil rights case, but I'm betting it's not about a fatal police shooting, because the guy whose civil rights were violated supposedly is the plaintiff. So long story short, I looked it up in the Pacer the electronic court system, and just started kind of fell down this rabbit hole, because the first thing that I saw was the Ninth Circuit kicking a judge off the case, which is really rare. Ever do that. But there was a judge in LA. He finally died when he was 95, but he'd been on the bench for like almost 50 years, and he was
95.
He'd done a lot of good. He's actually the judge who first desegregated the schools in Pasadena way back in the day. But he was an old codger named Manny Riel, and he was terrible to litigants. Like, he would just throw out lawsuits for no reason, and he'd throw out this lawsuit because the guy, after he got out of prison, he sued, and the judge granted summary judgment on it, and they tossed out the case, and his lawyer went to the Ninth Circuit and said that the judge erred. And so then Ninth Circuit agreed and sent it back, and actually ordered the chief judge to give it to another judge. So that's kind of what got my attention. I'm like, you got all these judges like passing around the case, because the judges don't get enough scrutiny, especially, well, none of them do, but especially
hardly ever. No, it's mostly the lawyers, or never the judges. But going back to Milla, I do want to say he did not. Basically, he was trying to. I'm saying it wrong, but suing. So because he was in wrongly.
Yeah, and he didn't get anything. He was trying to get like unlawful imprisonment, like suing the cops, saying that it was malicious prosecution, that they hid evidence, ignored evidence, and just built a case against him maliciously. And one problem was his lawyers were so bad. Like, it's kind of hard to describe, but just like when you're in court all the time, good lawyers when they can do good opening statements and question witnesses. And these guys were total morons. Like, somebody else in the courtroom told me she's been in federal courts for 16 years. And like, his lead guy was probably the worst attorney she's ever seen. Like, definitely bottom 3, like maybe the worst. So he didn't have, like, very good advocates, and just the way the case was put on. But yeah, it was depressing to see the jury come back against him, because they did have this guy testify. Actually, one of the guys who was shot testified about how he felt pressured by the cops to identify Milla, and he testified against him, and he's been feeling guilty about it. But they didn't really show that the cops like unfairly pressured him. It just wasn't really there. And then it didn't help that the guy's lawyers were like total morons. So one thing I'm trying to do, I need to do a story on that. And I put it on Twitter and it got a bunch of attention, but I'm kind of reminding myself that like the role of journalists sometimes, because one thing I say is like, isn't there some kind of state fund that this guy can go to and just get compensated for the time that he spent in prison? And as a journalist, it's like, that's the question I need to answer in my story, And so I want to talk to somebody like with the Innocence Project or something.
Right, because there has to be something like you were wrongfully convicted and like you spent this time in jail and now it's like, oh, well, we're sorry, but there's nothing we can do for you. Like it has to be something. But yeah, that is something to look into.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to get a story out on that soon, but hopefully somebody from the Innocence Project should want to talk about it. But it was depressing.
Right. So going back to Tory, do you think that he might not have the right lawyers for him, or this is basically a hard case in general because of everything surrounding it?
Kind of a hard case. Like I personally, like, we want to get into my opinion, think that he made a mistake going with George instead of Sean. That I think Sean obviously was looking to keep it more open-ended. Like, we don't know who the shooter was. We know it wasn't Tory. We don't know who the shooter was. It was probably Quan. But because the investigation was so bad and the rush to judgment, we just don't know. And she didn't want to do the Kelsey defense, where I mean, it just seems like that would have been a better defense to have for him. And Sean is a little more skilled because, I mean, I don't want to just like drag people unnecessarily, but somebody else, I know a lot of people in the court system, and when like the court reporters, like the transcriptionists and stuff, the people who sit there all day and listen to all this shit, they have like good insight into who's a good attorney. And who people think absolutely sucks? That George McDesian guy. The guy, he did some civil rights case in front of Judge G a couple months ago, and somebody said his opening sucked, his closing sucked, his witness exam sucked. It's like, when you're sucking that much, there's not a lot of room for like good lawyering to go on, So yeah,
right.
So I think Baez would have been good for trial if he'd had him for trial, but it was almost, it's just like, why does he have him now? Because he's not from California, and Baez basically admits,
right, he's from Miami, right?
Yeah. So, because when you're doing stuff before a jury, he can kind of go state to state, because that's pretty transferable, like getting up and talking in front of a jury. But when you're talking about like the specifics of state law, it's like, yeah, you wouldn't want Baez just boning up on that stuff at the last minute. You want somebody who knows something about California. So
right,
it just seems like, yeah, he's been, and right now I'm curious to know if something's going to happen next week with this counsel. Like if it's just going to go like we heard on Wednesday, Ronda Dixon is out. What's his name? Wellborn's going to come in, and that's it. Sentencing on the 7th.
Yeah.
Or if Lanez is going to try to go with Dixon again or something. I don't know. We'll see.
We never know. Well, Dixon kind of blames you for the reason why she's on the case.
Yeah,
with her in the elevator, or
it was right as we were exiting out of the courtroom. She saw me, and yeah, she was just obviously really bummed because she was excited to be involved in the case, and then Baez kind of yanked the rug out from under, and it was like, well, what did you expect was going to happen? I mean, in what she did, contacting a reporter to be like, hi, I'm Tory's new lawyer, it's like, that's been done before. I mean, Barhoma did that. I got a press release like back in January when Barhoma was joining the case.
Oh, okay.
So her problem was she just had that clash with Baez, and
right.
Baez got the upper hand by Tory agreeing with Baez and in court going with Baez instead of her. But like I said, when I was doing that live in a Lanez foot soldier was going off on me in the comments, he said that Lanez was meeting with Dixon this weekend. I'm like, oh, I hope that's true.
Or that's probably like was Dixon herself, and then she was pretending to be somebody else.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but I was going to ask you, because Tory had mentioned you on his Instagram story. And how was that? Because was that the first time he actually mentioned you by name, or?
Yeah, it was. Actually, I found out about, I got a DM. It was a very dire DM from somebody. They're like, I don't usually DM people, but I just wanted you to know I sincerely apologize for the harassment you're about to endure. It's going to happen soon. And it was a screenshot of the text. And I was a little bit like, oh God. I mean, God, he has 12 million followers, you know, but it actually, like, I got a little bit of it here and there, like some Instagram comments. By my favorite insult on Instagram I've ever got, or maybe it was Twitter, it was completely random, but somebody tweeted at me, they're like, I bet your breath smells like coffee and white ass. I'm like, well, that's but I didn't even get anything that good this time. Like I got a few here and there, but one thing, I've already blocked like most of the like really, really nasty people on Twitter. Mm-hmm. So they, you know, don't really have an outlet anymore.
Right. They couldn't contact you.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing, I mean, he didn't spell my name correctly. So I think that kind of threw off the trail. But also, like, I was putting this in perspective. I'm like, it's kind of funny that his team did this because, like, yeah, I mean, I get a lot of attention for covering the trial. Like, I've got like my biggest following is like 70,000, it's almost 70,000 followers on Twitter, which, you know,
Twitter, yeah,
I'm proud of that. It's nothing compared to his 11.8 million Instagram. Like, what? And I mean, so many people saw that story and were just like, "What? Right. Meghann, who?" Because one thing I noticed was my personal portfolio website is MeghannCuniff.com. So if you were going to Google just Meghann, like the way he spelled it, that would come up. So if you look at my website traffic over the month, it's like steady, jump.
And jumps, yeah.
And it's like 500 people Googled me that day because, and it's not like I got 500 nasty messages from people. It was just a bunch of people being like, who the hell is Meghann Cuniff?
Yeah, so, like, who is this lady?
All he really did was like raise my profile a whole lot. I bet some of his fans are super jealous too. They've been clamoring.
I wonder, was it because of the Ronda Dixon thing? And then maybe she said something to him and then he went off, you know.
Because in the end, I mean, it's like, what is inaccurate about what I reported? And nothing. I mean, it was all confirmed by their own people. So I said in my article, and I mean, it really, like, I think they're at least a little bit embarrassed by that whole Ronda Dixon thing. And it's a very common emotion, you know, embarrassment. Yeah. Nobody likes to be embarrassed. It's a lot easier to channel your embarrassment into anger. So I think that's what it was, just a coping mechanism. They fired off that Instagram story. Take that. Like, well, if it lessens your, you know, channel your embarrassment into anger. And then, I mean, it's so Donald Trumpish too. Like,
right. Well, I have to ask you this to be fair and give both sides. Was this supposed to be an off the record conversation with Ronda, and then maybe that's where it went, or no?
Well, my understanding was it was all on the record. I mean, the email that she sent me, and then just the way the conversation started, you know, it was like, okay, like, here we go. And one thing I was at, because she was saying that she had a bunch of legal issues she wanted to explore. So I was like, what are those, you know? And she wouldn't tell me. So it's like, if it was an off the record conversation, you know, or if she thought that it was off the record, like, it seems like she would tell me and she'd just be like, don't, but she wouldn't. She's like, oh no, I don't want to reveal that yet, you know? So
right. So she would keep some things in that she didn't want to say and then tell you other things.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, maybe, she had a lot to say. It was like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, because that's just crazy how you got blamed for it. I guess blame everything on Meghann, but you got blamed for it. But it's like, no, you talked to me willingly, right?
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, they just don't like the way they sound. Like they thought it would come out like a little bit differently or something, or, you know, I'm not sure. And going back and forth when I talked to her, like, should I just wait until after the court hearing? But there were other people reporting it, and I was getting so many DMs from people asking about what this court hearing was. And I was thinking about just putting something out on Twitter, but I'm really trying to get away from like posting original news on there because I don't like Elon Musk and we need to get away from him and blah, blah, blah. So I was like,
I'm starting to use Threads now.
Yeah, exactly. I want everything I post to be like funneling traffic back to my website. So I was like, I'll just write everything I know into a story on my website and then tweet that out. And then also I didn't want to tweet anything out until I at least reached out to Barhoma and Baez for comment. Because come on, she's like talking about how they're ripping him off, which Barhoma and Barhoma didn't like the charging him $90,000 for the appellate brief, but he actually didn't directly dispute that either. And when you look at Totally. The guy that Barhoma brags about having worked under, this Aaron Spolin guy, the LA Times just did a big expose on him, and he charges inmates, like the families of inmates, guys who are doing like life for murder. He solicits their families and says, "Oh, I can bring a habeas petition and get him out." And the reporter for the LA Times talked to people in these counties who were like, "Yeah, that has no chance of ever being passed. The county would never allow that." And Spolin is charging these inmates like 20,000. The number I remember seeing in there was like 19,000 for habeas petition for like poor families with people. So for a celebrity like that, and for an appellate petition, I'm like, oh yeah, 90,000 sounds like about right, So
right.
yeah,
I know. I believe it. Like, I was all like, I could see that. And, I think, subconsciously, we probably all thought like, are these lawyers kind of taking advantage of him? But, I'm not saying they're bad people, but you just kind of think that because it's all like, well, I don't, just the way everything with Tory has happened, different lawyers and stuff like that. It's all like, well, rightfully, you would think like, okay, I think these people are just sucking money out of him and not even really caring.
Yeah, totally. They all kind of care in their own way, maybe. But what really sealed it for me, and I had to go back and add this to the article I did too, because I was talking about, it took getting the signed paper, the notice of appearance with Barhoma and Ronda's signature, and also Tory's signature on there. And then the prosecutors also told me that there was going to be a hearing because somebody wanted to swap in, and it's the new attorney. But what really confirms it is Barhoma's email to me. I mean, he responds, he says, none of it is true. Ronda has all the case materials from Baez and I. It's like, okay, so she is taking over the case. And then in court later that day, he just told the judge he was confused and didn't know what was going on, and Baez took over. So I just, in Tory's, I don't know, I have empathy for anybody who has to like deal with like a revolving door of like scammy attorneys, and it just seems like, because God, Baez was saying that not only are they getting I keep forgetting his name, Wellborn. And not only are they getting Wellborn in, but Baez was saying, oh, they're going to have another team member. It's somebody from out of state. And you can tell Hereford is kind of like, how many attorneys do you need? Right. None of them are really doing anything other than just charging them money. It's like kind of sad.
Yeah, I hope, because granted, I don't want to see anybody, being used and, basically taken advantage of. But, he definitely needs the right team of people behind him and somebody in there to really like fight for him, because right now it's not looking good. It does look like a money grab.
Wellborn, like just objectively speaking, Wellborn is the best person for him. Like it would be a mistake for him to, go on bring Ronda in too if you want, but don't like get rid of your experienced California criminal guy who's doing your mitigation package so you can bring this let me out of jail for cruel and unusual punishment thing. Like maybe do that too. Like if you've got money to burn and you want to do that, why not? But definitely keep the guy on who's also doing the mitigation package for your sentencing, So, right. But also what he could do, because there's like this idea that lawyers are just like, they have the magic beans. And kind of when you're going into a jury trial, like that's kind of true. I mean, because it does matter who your lawyer is. I was going off about how bad Marco Milla's lawyer was. And Baez kind of has that like magic bean potion to him, but it doesn't apply post-trial. He's not going to get a new trial. It's just all about the appellate law and stuff. So I'm almost like, for how much Baez must be charging him, he should freaking get rid of Baez and just have this Ed Wellborn guy. I mean, what is Baez doing? Like, I doubt he's working for free. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I don't believe any of these people are working for free. They're taking a lot of money. Yeah. And, and the thing is, too, I feel like he kind of went with when it comes to Baez, at least, he went with the name because, the Casey Anthony and stuff like that. And it was kind of like, well, that's a different situation. I really believe when you get a lawyer, you really need to research and really look at what they can do for you. And like you said, it's an appellate court now. It's not the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I wanted to ask you, your final thoughts on like, just the whole being in the courtroom, reporting and now, coming on YouTube and then online, like, how do you balance all this stuff?
Yeah, it's a lot. I gotta try to I gotta find my headphones too. I want to go for a walk down at the beach, but I like to listen to music when I do that. I can't find my headphones right now, but you just gotta, kind of keep your head down and not, just focus on what needs to get done and try not to get too much caught up in the noise. Just kind of focus on what you need to do and just kind of remember what's always worked in the past is just, focusing on the facts and kind of trying to block out the noise. So.
Yes, I definitely agree with you on that. And Meghann, tell the people where they can find you. I already put the link for your website, your YouTube channel. Oh, I didn't say Twitter. I didn't put Twitter down there either. Where can they find you at?
Yeah, Meghann Cuniff. That's my handle for pretty much everything, except TikTok is Meghann M. Cuniff, but I don't really use TikTok too much. But the big one is legalaffairsandtrials.com, and then my own YouTube, which is Meghann Cuniff.
Yes, and make sure you subscribe to our website as well to help her out so she can travel the country, you guys.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for all the comments. I hope hopefully we answered all questions, but I want to do this more, so subscribe and keep looking for us for sure.
Yes, and definitely I'll be reaching out to you because I'm pretty sure there'll be new developments because the case is August 7th, right, for the sentencing? Yes, August 7th. I know somebody asked and I totally forgot to answer that, but August 7th. And will you be there for that?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. That'll be, I was remarking to somebody, I was like, his sentencing is going to be insane. I mean, it's probably going to be 2 days, and it's just going to be the biggest, just like go on like a keto diet beforehand and get like an exercise regimen like in the weeks before to like prepare kind of shit. Like,
yeah,
it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy, definitely. Well, Meghann, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much.
And make sure you guys subscribe to her channel. Check out her website. Also on Twitter, Meghann Cuniff. You guys can definitely find her there. We appreciate her being here as well. And you guys, hopefully we got to answer some of your questions and stuff like that. Who sued who? Did Tip sue? Oh, the OMG. Are you talking about for the OMG girl dolls and stuff like that? We didn't talk about that too much. Let me see if Meghann, are you still here? Okay, let me see.
So
hey, Meghann.
Yeah, MGA actually initiated the lawsuit. It was T.I. and Tiny sent MGA a letter being like, can you like cease and desist letter, and instead of responding to it, they filed a request for declaratory relief, like basically trying to get a judge to say you don't owe them anything, and that started the litigation. So the last filing on that is MGA's lawyers want like $6 million in attorney fees, which is just like, go fuck yourselves. So gross, dude. That's like $1 million a month. I mean, what the hell? Like, and right now, I checked the filings. In their recent filing, they're fighting over a charge, a $16,000 charge for a binder. And the filings are about like, they're fighting about whether it was organized or not. I'm like, oh my God. But T.I.'s lawyers are appealing it. And I think they need to file in opposition to the $6 million, because it is likely that MGA is going to get something. Like T.I. and Tiny are going to have to pay some attorney fees, but they're not going to do the full $6 million. And the judge is not going to just sign off on that $6 million, because the judge was really pissed off at the MGA lawyers for like what assholes they were. And like the whole thing was so over litigated. Like there's like examples of all these dumb sanctions motions that the attorneys would file. Like MGA's lawyers spent like $100,000 in billable hours writing these sanctions motions, and the judge rejected the sanctions, and because they wanted the sanctions to reimburse them for the attorney fees and all this stuff, so he rejected it. So now that the trial's over, they're like trying to get that stuff reimbursed again. They're like asking again to get that stuff reimbursed, because it's just blanket fee, cover all our attorney fees. So the judge is definitely going to be like looking for that stuff. He's not going to include all that stuff in there. Like, God, I hope he doesn't give him anything, but he's probably going to give him something. It won't be
okay. They might get a little something, but not $6 million. Yeah, that's crazy. And it wasn't funny how we were just talking about how lawyers could possibly be taking advantage of people. Like, that just seems like that's a ridiculous amount. Like, that is crazy.
Yeah. Oh God, there's just, I don't know, the money floats around the legal world, you know? And because that's one thing to remember is it's not like they've even spent that money. There's a difference between the attorney fees and then the costs.
Mm-hmm.
These are attorneys who are charging $900 an hour to like sit at a computer and type shit up and answer emails and shit. It's like, oh, come on.
Crazy. Well, Meghann, thank you for coming back up and explaining that. I do appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. Happy.
All right. All right, you guys, we're going to go ahead and end the show right there. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Remember, you guys can check out Meghann Cuniff as well, too. Just put in her name. Remember, Meghann with 2 N's, not 1, but 2. All right, you guys, it's been a great show. I definitely appreciated our conversation. And thank you guys for being respectful in the chat as well, too. Also, I caught something like about Nikwa. I seen Vegas comment, but I didn't see what Nikwa said. Definitely shout out to her. Hopefully she's all right. I'll make sure to message her. If you guys can just go ahead and fill up the chat with hearts for her, that would be greatly appreciated. Other than that, y'all, we out of here. Deuces. See y'all later.